I made a new pack called the Project Playground 1 pack that I want to show you guys today. I'm calling it Project Playground 1 because I had a lot of fun making this and I want to leave room to make more in the future. But when you install it, you just double click on the ALP file and it will open up live. Then it'll ask you where you want to save it. And I have a packs folder which I usually save these in, but for now I'm just going to put it on the desktop. And then you go open that project. And this is the main project folder with just the blank instrument racks. And then I also included the 3 demos I made for it, which I'll show you a little later. And then these are all the individual instrument racks and drum racks. So I made these into a project that hopefully you can come into and just have fun to create ideas. It's mainly made for idea creation. That time you don't want to open a blank Ableton project, you want some stuff to work with. This is all meant to help you start projects. First thing we have is the dynamic kit, and there are 4 different types of instrument racks in here. The first one is the kick. Oh, wrong track. First one is the kick. Now this, first of all, let me show you the macros. I kept them very simple so that, the sound is kind of what it is. You can shape it a bit, but it's meant to be quick. So I have a decay, tune, body. Let me turn the decay up, then you can hear a little more. And hit. Gives you some impact. Now what this is, so I made the dynamic kit. I called it that because I wanted each hit to sound a little bit different. Not like a drum machine, but not quite as expressive as like an acoustic kit, somewhere in between, something that's not gonna sound repetitive. So I have this expression control doing a lot of random things to a lot of different parameters. So let's go through here a little bit. So the meat of the kick is from this operator, these sine waves, and a noise oscillator as well, which comes into play with the hit. Then I have an overdrive and a corpus. Now the corpus is providing some of that body sound. Without it, it doesn't have that kind of sound of the shell of the drum. And you see all these parameters that are moving slightly? These are all this expression control controlling all these little things to make them sound, each hit sound a little bit different. So that's the kick. Next we have, I called it dynamic drum A. I called it drum because these you can use as either snares or toms. And in this kit, which I'll show you more of this kit later, how this is all set up. But I have them, 2 of them as snares and then as toms. So here's the snare. Similar controls, time. Let me turn this. Snare. And it adds noise, but it also brightens the noise as you turn it up so that you can kind of get clap type sounds as well, or more tom type sounds. And then there's a compressor that, let me open this up. So same deal, expression control, controlling a lot of different random parameters. I have an operator for the body of the drum, and then an operator that's all noise for the snare of the drum. There is a shifter. That is controlling the tune, since I'm using all these specific tunes to randomized to get slightly different random tunings. I use the shifter to do the full tuning. It's the compressor. The compressor control controls the threshold and the output. Let me break these down a little bit so that you could see. And it should kind of work to adjust the output with the compression being applied so that your volume stays somewhat the same. It's not perfect, but anyway, the noise. So in the noise section, let me turn the noise up. I have these notch filters that are randomly moving around, and it was just a way to get that randomness that you hear with little phasings of the high frequencies of a snare. Each time you hit it, you know, things are phasing a bit, and doing this with the EQ kind of emulates that to a certain degree. It helps. It helps with the randomness as you hit a lot of different notes. Okay, the next dynamic drum B is a different sounding snare for now. Or tom. And it's just different settings, same setup, but just different settings to get a different snare sound so that you can come in and model whichever one sounds best to you. Then I have a hi-hat. So the way the hi-hat works is, again, same expression control, controlling random parameters, and this is noise oscillators, as well as a sine wave oscillator, and this is providing some FM for, let me show you how this works. Let me show you these parameters first. Okay, so with all three of these parameters down, you'll hear nothing. And as I turn up the main noise, that's the first operator of noise that's a little longer. Then there's another one for hit that's a little shorter to add just that little ticking sound so that you can adjust how much hit you have and then how much kind of noise you have as the hi-hat opens a little bit. Then also hi-hats tend to have a frequency, multiple frequencies kind of all producing the noise that you hear. And so to simulate that a little bit, I have this FM, 2-operator FM setup going for this pitch control, which you can change the frequency of and the decay. And you could use this just to get triangle type sounds, but you can also add it in to the noise. Hear it there? To just add a little bit more hi-hat characteristic, however you want it. So the way this drum kit is set up is the kick, the 2 drums, and then again, I have different settings for them for toms, and then a hi-hat and a hi-hat with longer decays for an open hi-hat. It's the same hi-hat machine though. So then this kit is all put together with some routings here. So everything is going through this drum bus, which has this pedal and drum bus. And you can control a few things here, like the transient shaper, the drum bus wet dry, and the boom amount to add some lower frequencies. Then there's 2 different reverbs, and I have them pre-routed to most of the drums, except for the kick. And I have a short reverb. Oh, sorry, I'm hitting the kick. There's the snare, or the tom, a short reverb, or a long reverb. And then also some distortion. That's this pedal here. So after you program some drums, you can further mess with the kit with these parameters. This next instrument rack is called the Arp Mono Saw, and it has an arpeggiator. Let me talk first here and then I'll play. It has an arpeggiator already on, which you can turn off. And there's a delay also on. You can turn that off by going all the way to the bottom, or if you want, change the rate. And this synth is meant to really be this sort of arpeggiated electronic synth. There's a decay that also decays the filter envelope. So you can get those sort of stab sounds. This thicken adds more voices and chorusing. Delay. This changes delay time. And then a post effects filter to totally dull the sound down if you want. And between the delay time and the arpeggiator time, you can find some cool rhythms. And I tried to make these knobs just sort of beg to be played with and automated, so you can have this. You get the idea. And let's open this up. So this is an analog device, square and a saw wave, controlling the filter decay. There's a saturator providing some of that grit, chorus ensemble, that's what's doing the thickening, and delay, and the filter that's post effects. Pretty straightforward, but just programmed it to sound pretty decent. Next up is bass clean to drive, it's called, because it can go from a clean sound to a heavily driven sound, and it's a fairly standard bass sound at the start. Let me go down an octave. You open it up and it's pretty much just a sine wave, and you have control of the time. The tone, add some FM. The time controls that as well. A sub oscillator. And then all that gets put through an amp. And there, the distortion is a shaper from the operator that's being used. Not through the amp. Through the amp. And then there's a filter to filter off some of that distortion. I find when I want bass, I really either want something clean or something a little driven. And so I made something just to provide you the tools to get something super simple like that as quickly as possible. Just when you need bass frequencies to a mix, this'll get you there quick. The next instrument is called Bell FM Tone, and here's what it sounds like. Let me... There's a tone knob. time. I tried to reduce envelopes to something super simple like that for all these, just so I don't waste macros with ADSR knobs. So just all in one. Phaser. Just to add some, I usually like to keep these on lower settings, just to add some variety, some phase, but you can get some other sounds in there if you crank it up. And a delay. And then this alt tone select I think is kind of cool. There's about 6 different ranges here, and they'll change the tone of this thing. Let me show you this thing. So this is an operator going through a phaser flanger and a delay. And when you change this alt tone select, I have it set up to sort of sound interesting no matter which operator routing you have. And so this changes the operator routing. So most of the work in programming this was to get it set up to sound somewhat similar, but also good on each one of these settings. That's Bell FM tone. The next instrument rack is Pad Swarm. So sustain, if you want it to not sustain, or if you want it to sustain forever. And this swarm knob just adds a little high frequency chaos to it. There's a sub. Distortion. Which the sub can really dictate what the distortion is doing. These two tie in together a lot. And an LFO. Just to add some movement if you want it. Let's go into this. This is a wavetable. Mainly it's a wavetable. I have, this is just a little thing for my one knob vinyl distortion, just adding some vinyl distortion to the sound. That's this. And then the operator is just the sub. This is just turning up or down the operator. It's got that same vinyl distortion on it. Up last is Pulse Echo. Now this starts off plain. There's an attack and a release knob, so you can have really quick sounds, sounds that release, or sounds that drift up. The space knob here really helps. It's a big reverb. And the drive. I'll add distortion. The LFO also plays a pretty big role with this sound. Adding rhythms. Sometimes this can really help when you're first working on a song. You just need some rhythm to get you going. And having LFOs like this right already set to go can really help. Let's open this thing up. Another wavetable. With echo as the space, this is actually providing the reverb to this. And then the overdrive providing the distortion. So I also didn't show that I have just a basic reverb setup on the send for all these things, so that if you just need a little reverb, it's there for you. So I tried to make these instrument racks pretty focused so that you're not going to change the sound a whole lot with these macros, but you are going to be able to play and hopefully get ideas, get musical ideas. But the beauty of live is that you can just open these up and change something, change anything. Like if you want, this is a square wave, or sorry, as a saw wave. Or a few more octaves up. I mean, you can change literally anything about this if you want this to hold. And now you can easily play with chords that way. But, you know, don't feel locked into these parameters. You can do those, resave these. And also, I put POV for peaks and valleys at the end of all of this stuff. And I'm starting to do that with all my instruments, so that if you ever want to look for something that I made that you have, you can just search POV and it should pull it up pretty quick. But I highly encourage you to make your own changes and resave these with your own initials if that helps. So now I'm going to go into the demos and just show you those a little bit. You can listen to these on Bandcamp or Gumroad also, but they're just loops, so if you just hit, this is the first one. I'm just using only this pack, so it's all stock, nothing else mixing wise or anything. Go in here and play around it. If you like any of these specific sounds, check them out. But this will just keep looping forever. So let's go on to demo 2. Some of these for the demo track I made a little arrangement, but they're all also just loops. Here's the second one. to demo 3. And here's demo 3. So that is my new pack, Project Playground 1. You can buy it at Bandcamp or Gumroad. It's $3, and there's links in the description below.